The next speaker is Hinesh Doshi. By profession, he's a chartered accountant, and he worked with Khimji Kumarji and Company and S.V. Gatalia and started his own practice in 1991 in the name of Hinesh R. Doshi and Company. He is a senior partner of that firm. His firm received ISO 9001-2008 certification from TUV Germany through TUV India Private Limited since 2005. Member of Local Advisory Board of Korean Bank of India from 2008 to 2011. Co-opted member and Secondary Market Advisory Committee in Securities Exchange Board of India 2002-2011. He was elected as Managing Council member of the Chamber of Tax Consultants for 2010-13 and appointed as Chairman of International Taxation Committee. Elected as Honorary Joint Secretary of the Chamber of Tax Consultants for 2013-14. He is elected in Indian Executive Committee of National Treasurer of International Fiscal Association India branch from 2012 to 14. He has contributed and presented papers and led discussion in various programs of Bombay Chartered Account Society, Chamber of Tax Consultants, and Western Regional Council of ICI and FEMA and International Tax. He writing law updates in WRC newspaper on FEMA and international taxation since 2006. His area of specialization is tax, regulatory services, law applicable to foreign companies investing in India or Indian companies investing abroad. Practicing in the area of FEMA, inbound and outbound joint ventures, international tax, DTAA, FIPB approvals and RBI matters. With this brief introduction, I present before you Hinesh Doshi. And before I call him for his presentation, I request the Vice President to propose a memento to her. Hinesh bhai.
Good afternoon, friends. I hope you still have the energy to withstand the last speaker of the day. I see a lot of people. I'm sorry we have put you in a theatre style setting, but the response originally was only meant to be a workshop for about 50 to 75 people, but unprecedented response and request came, and then we had to accommodate everybody. So we are sorry that we are unable to provide you with more comfortable sitting. But anyway, we can't change it now, but maybe next time we'll see that we'll have a better venue. I am talking this as a Joint Secretary of Chamber, not as a Speaker of the day. Okay. Friends, before I start the topic, I was seeing the great interest in the subject, and I am informed that there are about 55 to 60 non-members who are attending this conference, who are attending this workshop. Let me tell you, Chamber has started a study circle which is called FEMA Study Circle. It is going to be effective from June 2014, and whatever we have discussed today, in fact, we'll be taking several sessions, we'll be calling RBI people, we'll be having our own experts, we'll be leading. I request all of you to join that FEMA study circle. And maybe what you have learned here is just probably you have understood the tip of the iceberg. There are lots of things, there are lots of definitions which even today after 15 or 20 years of understanding FEMA, we have 3 opinions about it actually. So I feel you should try and join this FEMA study circle. Now coming to the topic for today. The topic is presentation on establishment of branch, liaison, project office and regulatory issues connected with that setup. The format for our discussion would be a very interactive session. You may intervene, you may interrupt me anytime. Just raise your hand. Maybe if it's not a very longest question, we may try to discuss at that time, or maybe we'll keep it post my presentation. So there be a dialogue and not a monologue at our end. Okay, so before I start the presentation, this is going to be the index of the content. Entry strategies inbound, regulatory issues in FEMA and income tax. IT is income tax for LO, BO and PO. LO is liaison office, BO is branch office, PO is project office. We will use the word LO, BO, PO more frequently just to save time. So the part A part, entry strategies inbound. We have a classic structure. In fact, I had to change this slide because of the recent notification from RBI on the LLP. Earlier we just had, the top two. As a foreign entry strategies for a foreign entity, as a foreign company or as an Indian company. We didn't have a LLP structure available till date. But now recently RBI has added the LLP structure. So we have now threefold. And then as a foreign company, the area what we are going to deal today, a liaison office, branch office or a project office. What do you mean by as a foreign company? Say for example, we have Microsoft Incorporated, USA. They want to set up a liaison office or a branch office or a project office. They won't write Microsoft India Private Limited, right? They will write Microsoft Inc. India Liaison Office, or they will write Microsoft Inc. India Branch Office or Microsoft Inc. India Project Office. So that's the difference, what we mean by entry as a foreign company. And next is, as an Indian company means they will set up their wholly owned subsidiary, either 1% or 100%. Subsidiary means 50 and above. Then they can use the word India Private Limited and they will be called Microsoft India Private Limited. So that's the difference basically. We are basically bound by only one notification. The whole topic is bound by FEMA 22. Just a notification for setting up of a branch, liaison or a project office. You have heard all the speakers speaking of several sections of FEMA. Section 2, section 6. I am going to only focus section 6. Basically, that's going to be mainly for branch, liaison and project office. So what basically is, if you see a definition which Mayur Bhai has taken us through, section 2V3 of FEMA, a branch, liaison office or any other office in India owned or controlled by a person resident outside India shall become person resident in India. He has dealt just in the previous presentation that one of the definition of a person resident in India is setting up of an office by a foreign entity in India. So basically it will be considered as a person resident in India. For doing this, they cannot just simply set up an office in India. They need to take a prior approval from Reserve Bank of India for branch and liaison office. They just simply can't identify an office space, open a bank account and simply come to India. Anybody has any doubts or any questions on this first part, because this is the most crucial part. We may be going into more detailed. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay, I will cover it. It's coming in the future slide, but just to make your point, it is given for a period of 3 years initially, and then every 3 years you have to apply for renewal through your authorized dealer. Right? Authorized dealer will then extend your approval every time. No, company has to first apply to AD that I wish to renew, and then AD will process your application, seeing there are documents which are mentioned. If you have complied with it, they would automatically renew it and give a report to RBI. But the first initiation has to come from the company, right? Yeah. Right. Correct. Perfect. Perfect. Hmm. No, basically, see what has happened when you see this process. The first thing is you have to first approach an AD when you forward your application to RBI to set up your liaison office. He will do first the due diligence. He will exercise know your customer regulation. He will see the antecedents of the parent, what activities they are into. Are they into activities which are regulated activities or unregulated activities, or where 100% FDI is permitted? After having that, he will give his comments and recommendation to RBI. So generally changing an AD is not very easy, because that AD has recommended your case. So when you go to a new AD, you have to apply to RBI and get his confirmation. Yeah.
Liaison office or say representative office, if it wants to open this several offices across various states,
Right.
so registration with only that respective state ROC or only one ROC?
Correct. We'll come to that point. I have 2 slides on that. Yeah. I cannot hear you. What is meaning of regulated? It's regulated under FEMA. So we have no RBI in place. It's under FEMA. No, they don't come to your office. In fact, there is no machinery in RBI to visit a particular LO or BO unless there is a complaint by the authorized dealer. When you file your annual activity certificate and there is a negative mention of activities there, and they have mentioned that terms and conditions are not complied, then RBI may try to come and check. Okay, now there are 2 more categories of foreign companies. One is the insurance companies and foreign banks. In case of foreign insurance companies, RBI has no power to regulate them. Simply you have to apply to IRDA, which is Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. They are based out of Hyderabad. You have to apply to them and they will control the opening of office, branch or a liaison office of a foreign insurance company. And when it comes to bank, whether it's a representative office, LO or a branch in India, it is covered by Banking Regulation Act 1949, and DBOD, which is the central office in Mumbai, will grant the permission for either branch or a rep office. You don't have to go to the foreign exchange department for that. And then on the project office front, there are certain conditions where you don't need an approval. I will come to that in greater detail. Now in RBI, under LO and BO, we have 2 categories. One is RBI route, what we call it, more of it. RBI always says automatic route. Can anybody say what is automatic here? Has anybody experienced to say what is meaning of automatic route, what is meaning of general permission? Correct. So when you talk to a foreigner, he says automatic means nothing. I have to simply think and I have to start. That is what means automatic. But there is nothing like automatic. Automatic means you are permitted. Automatic means if you apply to your AD has power to register it, or you apply to RBI, you are permitted to do it. There is nothing like automatic or non-automatic. Everything is by approval or by intimation. So basically, if you see here, RBI route is you are permitted to open a liaison office. This is very, very important condition. More than 50% of applications are rejected mainly under this ground. Principal business of foreign entity, eligible for 100% FDI under automatic route. Let's take an example. Certain activities are not under automatic route. A multinational conglomerate having shipping, telecom, banking, infrastructure, some defense item manufacturing in their conglomerate, and they want to set up office in India, liaison office in India. they will say that you are in defense related item, which is not under 100% FDI route, or you are under a banking, one of your division is a banking division or a finance division, NBFC. We can't allow you to set up. So first you demerge this unit. If you want to do a trading activity of chemicals or petrochemicals or plastics, you demerge this particular division, make it into a separate company, and then you come to us. Otherwise we won't be able to give you permission. And hundreds of applications are rejected mainly on this ground currently. So if you don't fall under that, then you have to go to RBI under the government route, where RBI will forward it to government. What do you mean by government? In RBI, their only connection with them in Delhi is Department of Economic Affairs. Department of Economic Affairs is part of Ministry of Finance. There are two divisions. One is the NBFC division, and one is other than NBFC. They call it Capital Market Division, which is in, there are two different offices. One is in North Block and one is on Parliament Street. So basically they completely control all the applications received from RBI. Then they do a distribution of files among various ministries. If it's a defense, it goes to Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Commerce, and various other ministries, including IB, Ministry of Home, Ministry of External Affairs, depending on which country we are dealing it, from where it is coming basically. So that's how it is. Specifically, if you have a non-government NGO, say a Red Cross, right, or a Lions International, right, want to set up a liaison office, it's an NPO, or any government department of a foreign bank or a foreign government want to set up a liaison office or a branch office, you have to go through the government route. RBI does not have any power. And why it is so? Because more it's on reciprocal basis, right? If has that country given us any approval or rejected any approval when India has applied to that country, or how is their view on our investments in their country? Have they stopped any investments or repatriation of funds from that country to here? Are our Indian companies safe in that country? So on reciprocal basis, they take a call whenever NPO or NGOs or government departments are applying for LO or BO. Especially under the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, they want to see the control of terrorist money, anti-money laundering, seeing the funding of various terrorist group. That's all being done through the government route. Now what is the criteria? This is not a very important. The first one where they are rejecting is major criteria for rejection. Second criteria where many of them gets rejected is the track record and the net worth criteria. In the track record, you need a profit making track record for immediately preceding 3 years in case of a liaison office and 5 years in case of a branch office. So basically, if you can't comply with it, then there is a way out. We'll come to the next slide. I mean, if you can't comply with it. Similarly, net worth for a branch office, you need $100,000 minimum, and a liaison office $50,000. In case you can't comply with either of the two conditions of track record and net worth, you can give a letter of comfort from your main parent company, provided you say, like I gave an example of a chemical division being split or demerged into a separate company, right? And they want to open a liaison office, they can say, I am just a new unit, but my parent is, a 50-year-old or a 10-year or a 20-year-old organization, and give a letter of comfort from them, show their profitability, and based on that, you can surely get the approval. There is a format given in the notification how a letter of comfort should be done. Yeah. Right. See, it just says letter of comfort from your parent. They have not mentioned anywhere in notification immediate parent. Ultimately, they want to see that why this is there. I'll tell you reason, practical reason. This was not there 3 years ago. This has just come recently. Reason is, we asked RBI why you have kept this track record. He says, Mr. Doshi, hundreds of liaison offices, branch offices are in India. We have approved, but they have no funding from their parent. The employees here say that we have not got salary for months together. The vendors, creditors here say that there is no funding from parent, and that's how our Indian employees, Indian citizens are suffered. And from that point of view, this criteria has come. So idea is somebody has to take responsibility. They are not very technical about immediate parent or ultimate parent. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I have no personal experience. Maybe what you say could be correct, but this is what their intention was when they came with this letter of comfort actually. Okay. 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 Maybe it could be true. I have no practical experience. Next is on the restriction. Mayur Bhai said about our neighbors and he was giving example. So we have here more neighbors than what he has been told. You see, certain entities are unable to open office in India. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Iran, China. Recently Hong Kong and Macau is also added on 15 January to establish office in India. And why Hong Kong, Macau is recently added? Because the UN cry was taken by China during their meeting in Delhi last time, that when the president had come to meet our president in India, they said you are only writing China, but Hong Kong and Macau is politically part of China, and you have not mentioned it, and you are sanctioning approval to Hong Kong companies and other companies to set up a liaison office, and that's how this restriction has recently come in on 15 January. Yeah. No, I'll tell you, the status is like this. In all these cases, applications would be accepted, RBI. RBI restriction is not equivalent to banning, right? It is not prohibited. Restriction means they will take the application, they will forward it to Department of Economic Affairs in Delhi. It will take at least 4 to 1 year period, where Department of Economic Affairs will move around at least 6 or 7 ministries of Delhi, take their consent, and then the approval is given. So it's not that they don't give. But yes, cases of Pakistan, Bangladesh are almost rejected. Afghanistan, Iran, they are simply rejected. Yes, China, Hong Kong, Macau, Sri Lanka, they are even today accepting, but it takes 6 months to 1 year to accept. But Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Iran, it's almost rejected in all cases. Yeah. Right.
Then in that cases, do they consider that, I have a projected plan and I am going to meet a criteria? So on a case-to-case basis,
no, they don't. No. Either you give a letter of comfort if you are unable to meet those 2 criteria.
Because if it is an independent company, like there is no parent or something, then
no, it will be difficult for you to set up. Okay. They are not entertaining any such request. Okay. But they cannot bypass what is there in their notification or in the regulation. They cannot do it. Who can open? Only body corporate, firm, association of individuals allowed to set up a liaison or a branch office. A query come from a proprietor firm abroad saying that I wish to open a liaison office. We have said it is not possible because they don't fit into the criteria. What are the activities permitted for a liaison office? Representing parent company, promoting export and import, promoting technical, financial collaboration between parent and group company, acting as a communication channel, and acting as a market research and some kind of other activities relating to collection of data. Just to just to give you a feedback, who wants to open a liaison office in India practically? Can somebody answer? Why would somebody open a liaison office, not set up a wholly owned subsidiary or a joint venture in India? Right. Do you feel, I would study the market by coming very often to India. I can make 5 business trips to India. I can visit whole of the country to study the market. Why do I need a liaison office practically?
Sometimes they have multiple objects also, like they already have a customer, they want to create a communication channel between
Right.
customers and the
Right. Okay. So next level, in the sense, once having identified, then to have a proper. Okay. What about you? Okay.
Establish a channel which can in future help me to reap more profits out of it.
Okay. Fine. I think answers are great. But let me tell you on a practical front, this is a great issue among income tax department. Not much in RBI. Almost 99% of liaison offices are doing business. They are acting as a branch office. Yeah, they are actually P. And because of that, a form called Form 49C has been introduced by CBDT, because wherever they have gone for a search or a survey, they have found, they have gone through the communication, they have gone through the emails, they have interviewed the customers whom these people have met. All of them on oath have said they have come, they have marketed, they have negotiated the price, they are doing everything. We have never even seen who is in head office. So this is the basic issue currently most of the liaison offices are facing. Now, what are the do's and don'ts of a LO? It cannot undertake any commercial business activity directly or indirectly, cannot earn any income, all expenses to be met by inward remittances, cannot have any signing or commitment powers on behalf of HO. What does this mean? You simply should do some market research, simply you should carry out some survey, simply you can identify a customer but then give those details to your HO. Simply you can do is that if your HO tells go and deliver this document to a customer, okay, go and mention and send this email to this customer, inform that this is my last offer, inform that these are the products available with my HO. Those are the kinds of preparatory or auxiliary services we call in income tax or in DTAA, that is permitted. But they can't go whole hog in going for marketing, giving a commitment on behalf of HO that this is the price, this is the delivery schedule, I am confirming the price schedule, quantity and quality. These all things LO cannot give. So practically if you see, if I am a businessman, why I would open a liaison office? When I have no authority, when I can do nothing practically. So more or less there is a very thin line of divide between a liaison office and a branch office. But from tax saving point of view, India has more than 85 DTAAs signed with various countries. One of the clause, Article 5 in all the DTAA is permanent establishment. And there they have defined, it does not include activities which are covered in liaison office. And that's how most of the foreign companies will come to you that I want to open a liaison office, because they don't want to pay tax in India. They don't want to commit any income or attribute any income in India. So that's the basic understanding why you will find maximum people opening a liaison office. Yeah. Yeah, say let's take an example. Let's take an example where I want to do a Delhi metro project, what's going on, or a Reliance, the Mumbai metro project, right? So I am a foreign company. I will send my person to India to set up a liaison office to explore possibilities of doing business in India, to take up some contract in India basically. Then I would say, okay, there is a chance where I can tie up with, say, Tata, or let's take case of Starbucks. I think live case of Starbucks. We have Starbucks all over the country to Tata. Tata Global Beverages has a joint venture with Starbucks. So how does it start? Starbucks has set up a liaison office first in India. It will explore, negotiate with several companies in India with whom they can have a tie-up to have their stores all over the country. They may talk in the north with somebody, south with somebody, east with somebody, west with somebody. Then they will make a report. According to us, Tata is the best company to come up with a joint venture to have our Starbucks chain of restaurants all over the country. And then that's how the financial collaboration would come in. And then Tata and Starbucks would form a joint venture and would have a 50-50% partnership. Or you can say a Montblanc pen. They had a tie-up with somebody else earlier. Now Titan is in picture. They have a liaison office in Delhi, Montblanc. They are continuously searching for a good partner to expand their business in India. So recently they have cancelled their existing arrangement with their partner and tied up with Titan. Now Montblanc pens and entire range of Montblanc would be sold by Titan in India. And from say 1st August or 1st September, it will go on. So these are the job of a liaison office. Or a live case I will tell you of insurance companies. We have so many insurance companies as our customer who want to enter India, but they are all waiting for, currently 26% is maximum investment by a foreign entity, foreign insurance company in India. They all are waiting. The day it becomes 49, they all are going to rush have a tie-up with Indian insurance company. So that if they are in India, they can know what are the opportunities, which companies they are going to come up with. They can have a dialogue and keep it everything ready till the FDI policy is changed. Unfortunately, there is no change. They all are sitting dead with no activity, waiting for an increase in the equity participation from 26 to 49 or 74. That's how what it answers your question. Next is having the do's and don'ts. Basically this will come in later, but just a nutshell is you need lots of compliances. You file with Director General of Income Tax, your activity of the liaison office. You file with DGP, Director General of Police. They were never in picture earlier, but recently in view of terrorist activity, they have said they want to monitor all the foreigners who are operating and involving in business in India. And file annual activity certificate, whether you have restricted yourself to activity what you are doing basically, or are you simply violating, doing business, doing activity other than what you are supposed to do. Then file 49C. This is the, I think, the most critical, I think, part and risk to every liaison office. If you read the form, I think not a single liaison office will be spared. All of them will be liable to pay tax in India, except for 100% genuine cases where they are really doing a market survey or a market research. Otherwise, most of them are supplying goods from their head office to Indian companies. They are mentioning who are the top 5 parties from whom your head office has sent material for last 3 years. Give details of your sales, your purchases, whom you have met. Everything is there in that form. It's one of the most dangerous form. Luckily, till now, Foreign Tax Division has not taken any action on most of them based on this 49C. I don't know why, but it's a very dangerous situation. Now, recently, in view of the Companies Act, you need to register with ROC within 30 days. So, the new form, which was originally 52, every year you are supposed to file annual return, has changed to FC2. And somebody had asked question, the approval for RBI is for how long? It's here, approval is granted for 3 years and then renewed by the AD. Yeah. May, correct.
There's also a point that, date of submission of AAC.
Right.
So how will you cope up with that? Because that is filed on 30th of September.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, Chamber has filed a memorandum before the Director General of Income Tax. If you see the section and the rule, it says should be filed electronically.
Right.
Right. But there is no electronic form on the website. Even till today, it's more than 2 years now.
Right.
We met and informed the DG that there is no thing. He says, no, you send by registered post.
Right.
right? So we send all the forms by registered post 49C, and then we ask them, what have you done? He says, see, all these are lying here, nobody has even touched them. So we are not trying to be aggressive, because it's more of a problem for our customer. The day they start looking on those forms, I think you are going to have lots of notices where P attribution will take place. They will say certain sales would be taxable in India. They will attribute an enormous portion of income in India. So we are also keeping silent, not educating the tax authorities on this issue. But your point is very valid. 30th May is for AAC. So what we are doing is, we are not filing AAC on 30th May. We say that would be submitted in due course. We are just simply...
So is it that once we file ASC, we need to resubmit the 49C form?
We just give reference to that old form filed, and then say this is the form in lieu of that.
Thank you.
Okay. As regards the branch office, what they can do, they can genuinely do trading activity, import and export of goods, render professional or consultancy services, research work in which the parent is engaged, promote technical financial collaboration, acting as a buying or a selling agent, rendering service in IT and software, rendering technical support to products supplied by parent or group company. There is no local trading. I mean, there are questions asked by foreign entities, can I buy in India and sell in India? Strictly speaking, it is not permitted. You can either do import, export, or buy from India and export. But 100% buying in India and 100% selling is not permitted. Then a foreign airline or a shipping company. Most of the foreign airline and shipping company either represented by a GSA, or they recent trend, almost all are opening their own offices in India. Almost all are opening a wholly owned subsidiary in India or a branch office in India. So they are permitted as a branch office. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll come to that. How to open and what are the compliance? I have a slide on that. Yeah, I have a slide on that. Right. Anyway, so let me just give answer to your point. I mean, I don't know, it may be in a later slides. The idea is that you can open generally up to 4 liaison offices or branch office. RBI does not have any restriction. That is in each region, north, south, east, west. But when you open, say, 2 offices in Bombay, or 1 office in Bombay, 1 in Pune, or 1 office in Delhi and 1 in, say, UP, they will not allow you unless you can have a very strong reason to say that I need 2 offices, 1 in Bombay and Pune. Generally, they allow up to 4 offices, very on a normal case basis, but above 4. But I would not recommend, for the reason you are going to invite income tax problem basically if you have a liaison office. Right? I had a client which had 400 employees as a liaison office and had 9 offices all over the country, a very big Japanese conglomerate. But they were operating until 1996. Now from 97 they opened their wholly owned subsidiaries now. I mean, in spite of almost 5 years of our convincing, it's a great risk, you should not do it. I mean, they opened up wholly owned subsidiary. But they had 9 offices with 300 employees in India. No, foreign airline, most of them are through GSA. Most of them are through GSA. They only have 1 or 2, they have 1 or 2 representatives who are posted in the GSA office. And they collect the money and monitor the payments and other activity. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, generally is through GSA, most of them through GSA. I didn't get you. Yeah, you can do it, there is no problem. It's permitted under a branch office category. And under tax treaty, they are not taxable in India. So they have no issue at all. Most of them have no issue at all, even though they open a branch office. Yeah, generally they don't restrict. But see, any number means they will open in the city where their operations are there. If cargo operations are there, see what they have 2 main income is what cargo and passenger. So wherever they are concentrated, they will open. Nobody will spend extra money and open so many offices. Okay, for example, if my head office is dealing in steel and I open a branch office, I have to mention what product I am going to deal in. I can't simply say that my head office dealing in steel, but I am going to deal in plastics or I am going to deal in some other product. They won't allow you to deal in other product. If you want to deal, you have to take a prior permission stating that my head office also started a new division or a new product and hence I wish to do it. In that case, they will allow you. The expenditure has to be out of income earned. If, for example, branch has earned any income outside India, they need to repatriate. You can't say that, okay, my HO will collect the money. Money has to come to India. Foreign exchange has to come to India. And ultimately, you have to show the profits in India. So these are the deadlines, basically same for branch office, 30th September for annual activity certificate, 31st December for FC2. Retail trading, manufacturing, processing not permitted for a branch office. Documents file, how do you open it? It's very simple documentation. Those net worth criteria have to be complied with. Profitability criteria, registration, incorporation certificates and connected documents and KYC documents has to be given. It's not very laborious process. Along with form FNC to your AD. AD will do a due diligence and after due diligence they will recommend it and send it forward to RBI in foreign exchange division in central office. Having reviewed it, RBI will give you the permission. Same way for for banks it is DBOD, insurance it is IRDA. Companies in telecom, finance sector, they require consent from Department of Economic Affairs. And why? Because this is the sector where 100% FDI is not permitted. And that's how it goes to government. And government means, as I informed you, Department of Economic Affairs for everything. Okay, somebody said about additional LO and BO. So this is the criteria you need to submit to RBI to open new offices. File form FNC but without the documentation. Simply give the reason. One office has to be identified as a nodal office because if you have 4 offices, all 4 cannot be the main office. One of them has to be a nodal office. Nodal office has to receive the remittance from the head office and then distribute it to various liaison branch offices. It cannot simply, everybody cannot receive independent remittances from HO. One nodal office has to receive it and then it has to be forwarded. No, they correct.
So there would not be the nodal agency over here may have one product, but the company will have multi-product and the other product.
Agreed. There is a profit center concept in their head office also, but they don't permit. They restrict yourself, and even your AD bank will not permit you to receive so many remittances at different locations. They want it centralized. In fact, in few cases we have got an RBI remark also. There is no compounding in this situation, but they said you cannot do this. No, but it is very specifically informed by RBI to them. It has to be one nodal office. They can only control it. Yeah, but then there is no meaning of nodal office. No, it is gone unnoticed, but it is not permitted.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if I want to open 2 offices in the same zone, one in non-SEZ zone and one in SEZ zone,
Right.
can I do that?
I feel it could be possible. Okay. I think additional activity I have dealt. Extension. Basically for 2 categories, NBFC and construction sector, they are not allowing any new offices to come in case of liaison, and existing have to close down. There is no permission granted for extension to NBFC sector and construction sector. This is the SEZ. The only exception in SEZ is difference is you can do manufacturing activity as a branch. General permission is there to establish, provided there is 100% FDI. So basically, it's a very easy process to promote the SEZ unit. So simply on having formed, you just open a bank account after getting permission. ROC, the new form under New Companies Act is FC1. Earlier we had form 44, which we used to file with ROC within 30 days. Now it is FC1. You have to file in 30 days. Apply for digital signature and normal compliances. Few registrations are there, which is for few are for liaison office and few are for branch offices. What is marked star are applicable to branch offices because they are going to do business in India. Others are mainly applicable for liaison office. Okay, anything on branch and liaison, because we'll move over to now the last part of the presentation, which is the project office. Yeah.
My question about this one, that ROC registration,
Yeah.
liaison office,
Okay.
under which state?
Okay.
Respective state or one state?
Right. See, under for foreign companies, Part 11 of Companies Act, which is 592 to 602, is applicable under erstwhile Companies Act. Right. So under that, they say the nodal ROC is New Delhi. For every foreign company, nodal ROC is New Delhi. You have to register at only one place, which is ROC New Delhi. File this form FC1 for all the offices together at one place. So nodal office plus all your other additional offices. You file it with ROC FC1 in New Delhi. And they will grant you the registration for that. And every year you file FC2 again at New Delhi only. There is no other ROC in India which monitors foreign companies except New Delhi. Yeah. No, it's very simple. How can it be different? It has to be one. See, the entity in India is the same foreign entity. The entity in India is not a separate legal entity. How can you have a separate PAN card? That is the biggest problem right now. When you go for closure or when you go for assessment of a LO, they see on form 26AS, there are transactions, and then it's a big issue of attribution and lot of issues, but you can't do something wrong or incorrect by taking two PAN numbers. That's a problem. Because see, I cannot say Hinesh Doshi in Delhi is different and Hinesh Doshi in Mumbai is different. We are same person. How can I have two PAN number, one in Delhi business for my office in Delhi? I can't have a separate PAN number.
No, she is referring to, let's say, Japan and Bombay.
No.
She is referring to Japan.
No. What she is referring, I have a liaison office in India, right? My head office is in Japan. It is doing some rental activity from Japan to an Indian company. 10% TDS is deducted. It shows in 26AS. And my officer says here LO is connected with that activity. So there is a problem, but you have to live with it. You have to show that LO was not connected basically. But it's a big issue, let me tell you that. That is no problem. 10 is based on the city. I can have in one city also 210 number, that's not a problem. But PAN number has to be one, there is no doubt about it. Okay, I think now we come to the project office part. How much time do we have, Paras bhai? Okay, maybe 5:15 is my time. Is it okay? Okay. Okay, so now we come to the last part, the project office. This recently is the most active part, most active scenario where most foreign companies are using it for doing infrastructure job. What are the conditions? There is no permission required from RBI. Just two conditions. One, you should secure a contract from an Indian company, which is Indian company means company which is incorporated in India. And second, there are four conditions. You comply with any one. The project is connected more with the project. The project is approved by somebody. The project is sanctioned by a bank. Any one. The first one is mandatory, and second, any one of the four. If you have it, there is no permission required. Simply you can go. This is called automatic actually, where you don't have to go to RBI. But they call it general permission. And other than that, you need to go to RBI for a prior permission. For example, the project is given by a foreign company to you in India, right? Then you need to go to RBI to set up a project office. Or all the 4 conditions which you are mentioned in the second part are not being met. Then you go to RBI to do it. Or I had a case where French, government department wanted to develop some part of Pondicherry, now we call Puducherry, and they had bid for a tender of Municipal Corporation of Puducherry. So they bid, they got the contract, and then they came to us that I want to open a project office. I said, but you are not permitted under general scheme. You have to first apply to RBI. And the contract was of 1 year period. The RBI took 3 months time to sanction because it was a government department. It goes to Delhi, Ministry of Finance to get approval. It took them 6 months to get the approval. They faced huge problem by paying LD, which is liquidated damages, for delaying the contract because they could not start, they could not open a bank account, they could not start the project office in India. So that's how they were not aware of it, and ultimately they paid a huge amount of penalty and project was delayed ultimately. Yeah.
So can more than one project office be opened for a single project?
Why you need more than one?
It's a big infrastructure project,
Right.
so it needs 2 project offices for
No,
better.
how does it help you to open 2? And in what way will it benefit you?
And just for the convenience of the
No, you can open one project and one site office. Like
Right.
for example, I can say my site is in a remote area in Maharashtra. So the
Right.
site will be called the site office. And my accounts team, finance team, commercial team, they are all in Bombay.
Right.
And I can have Bombay as a project office, and a site office can be there for local compliance.
The
That's
site
possible.
office is not a project office.
No, we call it different. Site is always a site office. Project office means overall managing the compliance.
So there are no restrictions to open site office.
Yeah, there's no problem. We can have 2.
Too.
But you can't call both of them as a project office.
Okay.
One is a project office, one is a site office.
Okay.
Again, for do's and don'ts, it's almost similar to branch office. Only inter-se, most critical point is the third point here, second and third. You cannot undertake any activity other than execution of this contract for which you opened the project office. And second, cannot transfer funds. For example, I have 3 contracts in India, 3 different project offices. I have 50 crore in one account, 10 crore in other account, and I have a deficit of 50 crore in the third project office. I cannot simply do interchange transfer of funds. I cannot simply give loan to my other project office. Giving loan or transfer will amount to remittance outside India. So basically RBI does not permit unless and until there is a prior RBI approval for that. Each project to have a separate bank account and site office, no equity participation, and most critical part in PO is parking of funds. You cannot keep your fund for more than 6 months of term deposit. So this is the biggest issue where huge in non-interest bearing money lie in current accounts and you can't do anything out of it. Only one difference is in the post formation. In this case, after you have formed a project office, within 60 days, you need to file a report to RBI through your AD stating that I opened a project office at so and so location, site office at so and so location. The report mentions the client for whom the project is taken. All details about the contract is given in the report. So that's one difference in the project office. Registration are almost similar for a branch office and a liaison office. Now in case of a remittance of fund, for example, I have done a project in India, I need to remit money. You need a CA certificate to say that these are the funds which I have earned. I have enough money to pay my future liabilities. I have enough fund to take care of my post closure liabilities. I filed a certificate in form 15 CB given by a CA saying that all taxes are paid. Undertaking, that this remittance will not affect the project in any way. So basically, it's more of a comfort situation that the project in India or the subcontractors, vendors, employees are not affected because of this remittance. That's the precaution taken by RBI. And secondly, compliance of taxes and statutory clearances. Yeah.
The first point, that CS certificate that sufficient provisions are made to meet liabilities in India, including income tax, etc.
Right.
We as professional, how do we ensure our safety while issuing this certificate?
Yeah.
Especially because these are all foreign companies.
No, I agree.
Their position and all.
I will tell you my experience. What we are doing is that we see based on the current tax assessments and the returns filed for the client till date. So based on that, if there are no liabilities, we simply write in the certificate based on the documents, income tax returns and assessments which are in force, there is no income tax liability. So with that caveat, you can issue the certificate. You cannot know what is going to happen in future. You say based on the current available documents. Anybody has any other experience can share maybe on this certificate. But I think this is the best way, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Separate bank account.
Correct. What it means that a company can take several projects in India. Right? For example, I bidded for a contract with IOCL, one contract I have with say Reliance Industries, one contract I have with Delhi Metro. Right? These are all different location, different projects I have taken in India. Each project to have one project office. I cannot have one project office monitoring all the contracts in India. That's not permitted. Even different bank account for every project. My Delhi Metro project bank account will be different. My Mumbai Metro bank account will be different. I cannot transfer inter-se funds also without RBI permission. That's what it means. Okay, and as regards winding up on the closure part, it's almost a very Herculean task. Let me tell you, earlier it was very easy because they were asking for a CA certificate, saying that please confirm that there is no tax liability, and based on CA certificate the liaison and branch offices were closed. But recent trend is they want only income tax certificate. Income tax certificate is almost impossible in most of the liaison cases and branch office. They want to attribute, they want to know your last 5 years activity, and when they go through it they find something or the other and they will say no, why this income was not taxable, I would like to reopen your assessment under either 148 or 263 or something. So this been a huge issue specifically for winding up. After RBI has amended that CA certificate is not valid, but you need compulsory income tax certificate. I am referring to the first part. NOC.
What would be the fate? And basically, the renewals are there for 3 years. The
Right.
renewals are there every 3 years.
Right.
Now, at the end of 3 years, if it is not renewed, you cannot technically undertake any further activity.
Right.
So, would that not amount to deemed closure?
No. A deemed closure means finally ROC has given you certificate for closure. That is called as a closure. Deemed, there is nothing like deemed closure actually. You will get a notice from ROC. You will get it because you have filed form 44 earlier,
Yes.
and now FIC 1. List of all your directors and people are there in that form. They will send a notice. You are still operational in India. Only it's an administrative lapse which is there, but you are still operational in India.
No, technically, even if
Because see,
branch
you
is
may
not
apply
operational-
after 3 months. You can again apply. Suppose you have forgotten by mistake, by oversight, and you may apply in June. It has lapsed in March. You can apply in June saying that I would like to extend it. RBI will give you permission.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you have to again file fresh form FNC because the date is over 31st March.
Okay.
But strictly it is not closed. Otherwise winding up regulation would not be there. This is best way. No, there is there is no section like expatriates. There is no section where you file form 230 or that form is there. In income tax, a normal income tax assessment letter saying no due certificate has to be given addressed to Registrar of Companies or Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It's very, very difficult. In most cases, we have got few cases, but they have taken a very, very strictly worded indemnity bond saying that within any time, if we want to reopen, somebody will be there to receive our notice, somebody will be there to comply with the documents. If we issue Form 148, who is there to receive our notice? All those things they have put in the indemnity bond, signed by the chairman or CEO of the company, and then they have given the closure. By the AO, assessing officer. So the first part, income tax clearance certificate, is the most difficult part during the winding up part. No, wherever you are assessed, wherever is your project office and wherever you are assessed for LO, BO and PO. If I have 4 offices where you have chosen to file your income tax return, who does your assessment is the one who gives you the tax clearance certificate. Yeah.
Months to close the LO, so they provide some extension for 3.
There is no extension required. You simply file a letter with RBI.
Okay.
That I am in the process of closure.
Okay.
And we'll file due documents.
But for that 3 months, I don't have to comply with that
nothing,
AAC or something.
Nothing. We have already applied for closure, and you have to mention within short time we are complying with all the documents.
So my letter would be from the date.
Yeah, you have to file to your AD. AD will file it to RBI.
Okay.
Further. I think this slide we will skip because it is just a simple comparison of all the 3 status, liaison, branch and project offices. Very detailed summary is given, differences between all 3 of them. I need not mention it, it's very clear actually. I think I'll touch upon only 2 things now. One is on the FRRO, DGP and Form 49C. Every DGP is the first one. Recently, it was not there earlier, but last 2-3 years we have been facing where the local police, there have been few riots or fights by the foreigners with the local people, and local people have complained that suddenly some foreigners have started living in our area, especially the companies from Asian countries, right? They have come in huge numbers to India. They set up offices in some remote location, and there have been a lot of fights with the local people. So the police said, we never aware that 500 people suddenly have come to India and they are sitting in my jurisdiction. So the police have told RBI that we need to know if such foreigners are coming to India, we need to track them, we need to monitor them, and what are they doing basically, and that's how DGP is there. After having got permission, within 5 working days, you are supposed to file a report to DGP. So that's a big issue. Every year, annual report is there of DGP in Annexure 3. Complete details, where they have gone, whom they have met, where they travelled, which airlines they have taken to travel to where, whom they have met, what business was conducted, which government department they have met, whom they have met in government department, which visas they are coming. It's a very detailed 3 or 4 page form, almost impossible to comply, but this is information they are asking DGP. Yeah. Yeah. There is a problem in project office, there is no due date to file this. They say you should file at the end of the period. So we assume before 31st December you should do it ideally, or by 30th September when you are doing the annual activity certificate. That's the ideal time to do it. See, I mentioned the last due date of filing is uncertain. If you see the last line, and this is on the form 49C. It's a very, very detailed form. It's like killing yourself if you are going to file this form, and you are going to have your own, you are asking for your own 148 notice to be issued by yourself actually when you give this information. Huh? Unfortunately, you have a very nice question. There is no penalty, which most of the consultants are, advising. don't file it. But there are ways where you can file it but don't disclose it. That is more better actually. I think we'll not go on the issues because most of them are covered actually. The closure, as you say, it's a very laborious process. It takes 6 months to sometimes even 2 years. And the last part is on the FRRO, right? FRRO is something where any foreigner who comes to India on visa which is more than 180 days or more than 6 months, they need to report within 14 days to FRRO office of that city. They call something called a blue book, and that book is called a residential permit. It's a mandatory requirement. You need to go to the CID branch in Mumbai with all these documents, and they'll give you the residential permit. With this, you have a benefit where suppose they check in into a 5-star hotel in Delhi, from Mumbai they go, or they travel in an airline. If they don't have this residential permit, they have to travel in foreign currency, they have to pay in foreign currency. Even in the hotel, they have to pay in foreign currency. But if they have this FRRO permit, they can pay it in Indian rupee. A lesser fee or lesser charge is there if you have a residential permit. And the last slide is on India has signed social security arrangements. Certain countries don't have to pay provident fund. These are the 9 countries. I'm not sure it's fully updated, but I think this is the latest list. Where 9 countries employees who are in India need not register under the PF Act and need not pay the PF as per Indian law, which is now mandatory actually. Right, friends. Thank you for your patience, and I hope I have answered all of them. But still, if you have maybe another 5 minutes, it's 5:10. Maybe another 5-7 minutes, I can take few questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Representative office or say liaison office is not supposed to carry on any commercial activity of maybe
Right.
buying, selling of goods or anything. Can they make import of material for their own purpose? Let's say making of furniture in the liaison office, and can they apply for IEC code against which they can import this material?
They will use the furniture for their own office,
Exclusively
right?
for
There's no
their
problem.
own office.
It's not a commercial activity.
It's not a commercial activity.
It's allowed. There's no problem.
But later on at the closure, can they transfer this goods, or rather that furniture or these capital items, let's say equipments and all, to the head office? once that
with prior approval of RBI, they can do it.
Okay.
There is no restriction. But it's not a commercial activity.
It's
simply,
not.
it's allowed.
Thank you.
Yeah, you had something. Yeah.
How do we go about when you want to convert an LO to a BO?
In case of a LO to BO, you need to file once again Form FNC, go to your banker, and then through your banker apply to RBI. RBI will allow you to convert from LO to BO. But larger issue is in income tax because BO is taxable. So if you are in between, then you may have to file 2 different returns, or it will be a very confusing situation unless you don't time it correctly actually. No, RBI is allowing you to convert. They don't want you to close down LO and then apply fresh FNC for a BO. They are allowing conversion. To
DGP, police.
I think it is applicable. I am not very sure, but it is applicable to every foreign entity. Basically, you have any other view on that? I think it should be applicable because intention is to monitor activities of a foreigner in India. So I believe it should be applicable.
When we go for FRRO, you are supposed to submit a lot of documents.
Right.
Now, typically, when you are just landed, you will end up in a hotel, and hotel issues a certificate based on which you complete the FRRO.
Right.
And then you shift to a permanent house, which could be elsewhere.
Right.
Now, are you required to do that change of address also?
Practically, you are supposed to do it.
Theoretically, it is okay.
Theoretically, it is okay, but let me tell you. See, I will
what
tell you.
is the risk area?
See, I will tell you. FRRO requires your leave license agreement or a long lease agreement with a hotel. No hotel will give you a letter to register in FRRO. So it is practically not possible unless there is a guest house which you have hired for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and he knows you so well. Then only you, because you need a letter from him. FRRO simply I cannot say room number 101 or room number 420 Oberoi Hotel. That way is not allowed.
5 stars hotel do issue.
Yeah, but there is a lease.
If you give them a say that they'll stay for 15 days.
Correct. So
15 days is what they are generally looking at as a business proposal.
Okay.
So they issue one form, but after that the change is there. So
practically it is, when theoretically it is required, I don't know practically.
What are the downside risks? What is the, if it is found to be incorrect, any penal consequences?
I don't think, maybe under Bombay Police Act or under something there must be something, but I am not aware actually. Yeah.
So let's say a foreign company has its Indian customers and some of its employees come down to India to cater to the needs of the Indian company, then does the FCO foreign company have to register as a branch in India?
Can you say again?
Sir, foreign company has some Indian customers. Now to cater to the needs of Indian customers, it deputes certain employees to India. And so does foreign company have to set up a branch in India?
No, business visits are not required to set up a branch in India. They can come any number of times. Unless you want that a dedicated office in India. See, I can sell more product when I am buying a mobile phone. If that office, that company does not have any service agent in India or office in India, who will buy such product? Same way, if they do not have an office where I can go and talk to them, very difficult to sell a product. But if I am selling one-time product, then there is no need. I can visit any number of times India, meet my customers and go away. I don't need an office here.
Do you render professional and consultancy services?
Yeah, that's not required.
So you require branch only if you want to have a property in India, immovable property?
No. If you want to be a permanent resident of that country, you want to show your customer that I am always available to you, you operate out of that, then you need a branch. Otherwise not required. I think that behind St. Xavier's College, CID branch 2 I think is there. Near Rang Bhavan Theatre and St. Xavier's College. No. It is, I think, issued for 3 years or something. 1 year? Okay. But a renewal is very easy. It's not a problem.
I understand it's been a long day for all you participants. Despite that, the session that Hinesh Bhai dealt with has been a very interactive session with all queries coming from your practical experiences. And the insights that Hinesh Bhai has given us on this entire topic has been exhaustive and comprehensive. For his coverage of the topic, I request all of you to extend your hands and give him a loud applause. Thank you, Hinesh Bhai. With that, we end our day today.